Tom, do you want to do a quick intro of who you are and what you do, so that they kind of have some a good concept of that?
No.
That's fine too.
I'm Tom Catlin. People call me Tom Cat, so get over that, Cat. Um, been in real estate 7 years. Been in the area for on and off for quite a while. I do more. I mean, real estate sounds pretty straightforward, but when you do your job well, it's very involved. And beyond that, I have 5 days a week. I have two people that I talk to every morning. One at 8 and one at 8:30. We're all agents, one in Arizona, one in Minnesota. And one thing that individual real estate agents tend to do is have a great exterior and keep everything bottled up inside. And they tend to feel like they're alone. So that's not the case with me. In addition to those daily calls every Wednesday, I've got a group that I started at our office in Georgetown called Six Pack. There are six of us. Nothing, no beer involved or anything like that, but we're willing. Anyway, we're all agents ranging in experience from 6 months to 7 years, which is me, but high productive, high thinkers, insightful, and willing to be vulnerable. So this is actually my lifeguarding shirt, strangely enough. From back in the day, I just started swimming again at the pool that I lifeguarded at. I don't know how many years ago, for a long time. So anyway,
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. That was awesome.
hey, sure, that'll be $5.
Oh, got it.
That's really cool. So tell me a little bit more about some of the insight that comes out of having that six pack group. Having like-minded industry professionals together working to, I assume, be the best that they can be. What are some of the insights that you've noticed by facilitating that group?
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole thing started was I was actually in my team leader's office, and I'd said, look, I've tried this so many times, tried to get people that want to just have accountability and be accountable and have something set where we meet on a regular basis. And that doesn't seem to work out. Then, okay, yes, we're going to do it every Tuesday at whatever time. And then it'll happen for 2 weeks. And then invariably, well, I scheduled something else. And so it started with the idea that we're just going to be, whatever's important to you is what's going to be important to us. And that's how we sold it. And if you were to have, so there are 4 that are originals, and then we had 6 that originally Six Pack and 2 left. And then we added 2 over the last 2 years. So it's a tightly knit group, but the insights that come out of it are things that are important to different people. Like, we've got one guy who is very, very structured. This is the way it's going to be. This is how an open house will work. This is my script. These are the numbers that should be important to everybody. Contrast that with another guy who was a principal for a long time. He was a Division I baseball player and recruited to become major league baseball player. And he decided his wife was more important than that life. So when our first meeting happened, here was Mr. Structure saying, this is what I want to talk about, and I want to make sure that I know my numbers, and I want everybody to know what their numbers are. And then Joseph went next, and he said, well, I don't know my numbers, and that's not what's important to me. What I want to make sure that I do is 5 days a week, I make my bed. And that just threw the other guy. But over time, we've developed. But what's important, what's interesting about the whole all these meetings, which last an hour and a half, is whether there's 4 people that show up or all 6 show up, it always goes the hour and a half. And it's about life as it happens and how it relates to real estate. So, like the one guy that's very particular, he talks about how important his wife is and how he wants to make sure she's happy, but then he doesn't ever take the time to find the time. So we call him out. And so, I mean, it's very dynamic. It's really interesting. And once or twice, at least once a month, I'll think we need to be on stage, meaning having this group, maybe not the intimate conversation that we would normally have in group, but a conversation that we can have so that whether you're an experienced agent or somebody that's brand new, that you can see that there is all kinds of crazy going on in our heads, and we are still effective, and we're still going to succeed. Because the trap that most people get, and I think 86% of all agents that start are done within 2 years. The problem is they associate themselves with others that are in agreement with their enemy within. They're the person in their head that is telling them that it can't, or this isn't me, or I'm not going to make it, instead of associating it with, yeah, all you have to do is wear your name badge. And I mean, like my first listing came because I had my badge on when I was getting my oil changed. And this guy said, "You want to sell my land?" Sure. It can be as simple as that, but everybody makes everything so complicated. So that's quite a long answer, but I could probably go on for even longer.
That's phenomenal. So I love the idea of being able to take that a step further. And how does that group continue to impact others in the industry? What's the top challenge, or what's kind of holding back from taking that leap as a group and being on stage in some way, shape, or form, once a month or even once a quarter?
That's a great question. I bring it up, and there tends to be passive agreement. Oh yeah, that would be cool. But yeah, I think I like that. I think I'm just going to take that as a challenge and just go to my team lead and say, I would like you to send an email to all of us and invite us to have a whatever. And then, we can script it. Carrie, you can interview us and say, how did you start? And what was your first success? And what makes you afraid? And what are your, all that kind of stuff. I mean, really, because these conversations get so deep, so much thought in there, and they're so varied. So Joseph was a principal and isn't, an athlete, and his thing is, well, I just have conversations and I just go have coffee with people. And Scott is, hey, I have to have 13 conversations every day in person and 1 coffee a week, or it's just not going to work. And so anyway, yeah, I like that, because I mean, I can really actually see us being, every year we have a thing called Family Reunion, which is thousands and thousands of, high performing people. But I could see us being on a stage talking about that stuff. It's huge. And anyway, I could talk for a while, as you can see.
No, I love that. Thank you for being willing to share some of that with us here this morning, because it's, at the end of the day, that's part of what this call is about too, outside of just the real estate industry. But let's continue to have those conversations as business leaders and business owners, because at the end of the day, it can be very lonely. It can be, being able to get the different perspective from others who are facing similar challenges, but maybe in a slightly different way, from a different perspective, and how powerful that can be. So I really appreciate you sharing that that group and kind of where you're looking at with it. And I'd love to hear how that goes when you take that next step and you start getting in front of more people to share those experiences. Um, to me, that's very exciting to kind of see the impact that that could have.
Well, you will hear, and I mean, and what's interesting about you saying that, one of the things that I heard you hinting at was, so many of us think, well, you just don't understand what I'm going through, and that's where we're selfishly wrong. We don't know the exact experience. We don't know what's going on in your head, but we know the difficulty. We know that there's difficulty, and we know it's not easy. And there's the saying, don't judge a person's don't compare your insides to other people's outsides, because we all walk around with this great shell, and then we get into our office and go, oh my God, So that is the reality that people need to know.
Yes, couldn't agree more. Corwin, good morning. I want to make sure I acknowledge you there as well. How are you doing this morning? I like the double thumbs up. That's
I'm all
fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Well, since we've got a couple of you on the call at this point, and we really haven't gone down too much of a path. What's Corwin, Tom, what's a top challenge or constraint that you're facing today that that you're working to overcome or would like some guidance on from those on the call?
Mine is time. There's never enough time. However, that's been a constant forever, so I don't think it's a very good excuse. And so then we wrap back around to, all right, well, we've got this set amount of time. And so what I'm starting to find is that number of cases is huge, but number of cases that pay you and don't have the ability to cause you negative revenue, I think is even more important. And so that's really what I'm focusing on right now, is picking up a ton of business. And in the last 10 days, it's been a very lucrative 10 days. But what I've been doing is weeding out the stuff that's ultimately not worth my time, in terms of, if I complete this project, all cases take the same amount of time. It's kind of crazy that way. And so making sure that I'm only taking on the ones that will pay me, ultimately what will keep me happy in terms of getting paid, and then continuing. My big struggle is people. I'm the most valuable player on my team, likely always will be. It's very hard to find people who are committed and wanting to do the work that we've got to do here. And so that is a continual struggle for me.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Tom, what's on your plate?
I don't have so much on my plate. I have been just my big struggle has been trying, similar, I guess, maybe trying to control my calendar. So like, I put on my calendar, hey, I need to do lead generation. I need to make sure that I make so many contacts. And when you put a number on the number of contacts that you want to make, and you put a time constraint on that, there's an interesting contrast, because sometimes when you finally, you want to dial, and you can, say, oh, I've left 20 voice messages, which makes you feel good, like you've done something. But when you end up having a conversation and then they want to talk longer, just getting them off the phone when they're not talking, that kind of thing. But I mean, that's something that I've been working on and doing better with this week. I, on a personal side, this Sunday, I'm flying to Miami for 3 days of real estate school with some really, really, really big people, like millionaires and billionaires. And then there's me, kind of thing. And so when I get there, I'm absolutely fine. But going there, I'm always thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing? Anyway, so looking forward to being there. I don't like the idea of, taking the first step in, but once I'm in, then I'm my normal self. So that's where I am.
Awesome. Well, first off, congratulations on taking the step and choosing to do something like that. Putting yourself in the room with, or in an environment with, really high producers and really successful people in your industry is only going to continue to elevate you. So that's fantastic. Congratulations on that. I thank you both for sharing those pieces, and I do think there are some common themes, threads that we can kind of pull at today. And one thing, Corwin, that you mentioned that I wanted to kind of circle back on is weeding out the things that aren't worth the time, knowing that there's some clients that you may work with that the deal's bigger, creates more revenue, it's a little bit more fun to work on versus kind of the smaller deals that maybe are maybe negative in kind of revenue stream because it takes more of your time to do, or that type of concept. And I know that's very similar in the real estate industry as well. I mean, you could sell a $150,000 home, or you could sell an $800,000 home, and the revenue on that is going to, or how much you can make on commission on that, is very different, but they're also very, very different targets. So when we go back to understanding managing the time and the things like that, how detailed is your marketing efforts, your outreach to identifying that target and going after the target that's going to be the most valuable for the time spent?
So the outreach program is extremely targeted, and by extremely targeted, I mean I used to call business, my minimum threshold on revenue for a business that I'll work with used to be $1 million. Then it moved up to 3 million. Now it's at 5 million. And I don't call the 5 million ones. I call the 11 million ones. However, that doesn't stop people from walking into my office and saying, hey, I need some financial planning. Oh, and by the way, we are, most of the people that come to engage with us, they're people who have kind of existing problems that put difficulties in the insurance underwriting program, in addition to the fact that they don't show up with a lot of money. The people that I'm looking for never walk through my door. And so ultimately, and we've talked about this before, I'm an extremely altruistic person. I will help anybody at the demise of myself and my organization. And so that's one of my big struggles that I'm trying to turn around. I just love helping people. But making sure that I've got, if we're going to take those people that are walking in, that they can go to an associate and that they don't take my time. And so then we get back to that kind of prior roadblock that I've got that's been continual for about the last 8 months, which is, how do you find people who want to work and will do a good job?
Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting, the way you just framed it is very interesting. So the target, the outreach is very much towards the bigger fish,
higher end.
But yet there are still maybe it's some referrals, some walk-ins, things like that, some trickling in of other types of smaller fish that maybe aren't exactly what you want to spend your time doing. So, a question I have is, for each of those times that a smaller fish trickles in, if that was immediately offloaded off of your plate, can you spend that time reeling in a bigger fish? And where I'm going with this is, when you look at it that way, does bringing on even a part-time associate that can manage much of the smaller fish, can that flow and the effectiveness of what your time's doing at least feed the basics, so that all they have to do is take care of what's coming in versus actually going out and doing the hard work of actually bringing in the business? Does that make sense?
Yes. And bringing in and the way everybody's kind of set up here is, everybody's a commissionable person. And so ultimately they've got to stick around long enough. They've got to have a lot of the people that kind of come in here, they don't really know what they're doing. They know that they want to be in financial services. Most people who get into financial services, and the reason there's in this business is because nobody really knows what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. It's just the flash and awe of, hey, I'm in financial services. Let's go sell some insurance and investments. All right, how do we do that? And then kind of the learning aspect of it, where, for most people, and I tell them, hey, it's going to take you 5 years before you really get a grasp on what planning is, how to do the outreach, and actually make, I always tell people it takes 5 years to make 50 grand in this business. And that's not a very attractive statement. And so continuing to move on, I'm starting to get decent development from some of the younger people. And that's another one of the situations, is that most of the people coming into this business are younger, completely inexperienced, brand new. The people who are not coming into this business are the ones that have experience, know what they're doing, have the marketing and the planning already down. Those people already have jobs, and it costs lots and lots of money to get them to ultimately transfer away from where they're making money now to making money with you. And so then it really becomes, for experienced people to come into the organization, it requires a whole bunch of money. And that's something that, we make good earnings around here, but I don't have a whole bunch of money just sitting around to see if I can add value to somebody else's practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the flip side then, if the team piece is not, as you're, looking through kind of growth cycle of the business, that kind of thing, and knowing that for some of the experience you need, there needs to be a greater investment made, as you just stated. So now it's that dichotomy of, do you say, are you comfortable saying no? And being able to, when the smaller business comes in, and keeping the mindset of, one of these days as I grow, we'll be able to say yes to everything because the team can take care of it. But for now, we need to build that team. The way to build that team is, here's what we need to target. And it comes down to confidence. Confidence in your ability to bring in the bigger fish that you can do. And then that confidence in saying, I'm sorry, we are not a fit for you at this time. Here's somebody that I'd like to recommend. And just to quickly remove that so that you can focus on the pieces that's going to move you forward faster.
So it's funny you say that, Tanner, because that's what I've been trying to build in the last 5 days. There was somebody who was doing on LinkedIn. I do a lot of marketing through LinkedIn. I caught this young guy who's he's a brand builder for businesses. So he was asking me all sorts of questions, and I told him, I was like, my biggest problem is managing deals and making sure that I have the ability to say no to the stuff that's not a good fit, which right now I've got a whole bunch of not a good fit in the pipeline that I'm trying to get somebody else to do. And so, but with that, yes, I said no to my first case yesterday. It was absolutely frightening to tell somebody, no, I can't, this is not a good fit. And I did invite them to meet with somebody who is deep within the organization. Like, they're not on my website, but they're still within the organization. I can still get comped on it. But yeah, that was frightening. And I did it yesterday for the first time in my career.
And how did that feel?
Liberating. And then I went and closed a key employee plan, a group benefits, and a retirement plan, all at the same business that was making $5 million. It's stupid.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh, crazy.
And Tom, I want to make sure we keep you in on the conversation and such for this as well. But in your experience being 7 years into the real estate business, and working with some agents that are coming on board that are brand new, and it is how do I just get some listings? How do I get the homes sold? It doesn't. I imagine that it would be. I've seen this before, with younger real estate agents that I've worked with in the past, and it's take everything that you can, because they, it's commission based. Got to be able to make the money.
It all adds up.
So Tom, in your experience, how have you seen that take place in maybe in your experience or in your experience working with other younger agents, and kind of along the same lines of the maybe some of the time wasters of a deal that takes 2 months to close, but is a really, really small deal versus the maybe some other homes that you're able to sell that
Well,
make a
there's
lot
two
more. And
behaviors. Yeah, two behaviors that I can think of. One is there's a lot of people. I mean, right now the market is just tough, and so if you can get listings, that's fantastic. But as a new agent, there's two things that I'm going to tell you. People need houses to lease. It's quick money, and it's some money. Take care of them. And then we were talking about Joseph. That's what he did initially. And most of those people, I think he's like 80% of those people have now bought from him. And so seeing that potential. The other thing is doing their job and lead generating. And okay, I want to make money. What do I need to do? Well, you need to make phone calls, you need to make contact, you need to have conversations. Oh, I don't want to do that. Okay, and so it's very similar to what he was saying, in that I want to go do this. Oh, but I don't like the way that sounds, because that's, just, it's a job, and they're looking, they want it to happen to them, and but they don't want to have to go and get it. So I mean, it's easy to just say, oh, okay, you asked me and you don't want to listen. So if you need help with a transaction, I'll be glad to help you. But as it is, don't come to me for advice if you're not going to at least try it. Do take time to do the right job. And so then there is liberty in, like he had, in saying, oh yeah, no, I really don't, like right now, hey, I know somebody that's looking to buy a house. Okay, what are they looking to do? Well, they're veteran, and I really want to help you. But at least as long as I can have a real conversation with them, it's good. And the real conversation is, in the olden days, 18 months ago, 40% of all transactions were FHA and VA loans, and now it's down to under 6%. As long as you understand that we're going to look at houses that have been on the market for more than 2 weeks, which is an old house that probably has problems, as long as you understand that you have a very small chance in doing stuff and you have to follow my lead, then that's good. But if you want to just go look and look and look, you're not spending your time wisely, and you're not spending my time wisely. And so then that's when I'm not the right fit. And Excellent. It is freeing, because I mean, ultimately, when people contact me, hey, I've got some leads for you. Are they listing agents? I mean, not listing agents, but are they listings? That's where the time is well spent.
Tom, there's something that you had actually just stated in that that is so powerful, and that's really positioning. It's positioning to the maybe the client that you're working with on, here's what the expectations are, and this is the way it's going to be. And at the end of the day, to work with me, this is the framework we're going to do. If you're not willing to play by those rules, we're simply not the right fit. And that positioning is so powerful in most of what any of us on this call do. So I just wanted to point that out, because I think that is very powerful when it comes to being able to say no and know your own worth in how you want to work with clients and what's best fit for your time.
It tends to be romanticized. HGTV is fun to watch. But it's not, is it house number 1, house number 2, or house number 3? You want to be able to tell these buyers, when you do it my way, on the average, people are putting in 8 or 9 offers before they get their first house, before they get an offer accepted. With me, we're going to look at 3, and we're going to win on one of those 3. But it's going to take the same amount of time. Then they take that more seriously, and they understand that relationship. And then it becomes, oh, you actually know what you're talking about. You don't just open a door and say, what do you think? Let's write it up. Because people that see that, have that view, don't understand their value, or that people that give that view or receive the view don't see the value, that kind of thing.
Excellent. So for how you operate, Tom, do you have kind of a target, call it target market, that you go after as kind of your bread and butter for those to list with, or homes to sell, anything like that?
Well, they say it's listings to last. It's always been that. And it's listings, leads, and leverage are the three cornerstones. But I'm going after listings primarily. And so it's a freeing conversation to have when somebody contacts you and says, hey, I've got blah, 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 and it's not going to cost you anything, but you'll pay us 20% of your commission if you make a closing. And I say, awesome. What percentage of my leads are going to be listings? And they say, well, a lot of the buyers also have houses to sell. No, it's not for me. But by the way, who do you know that needs to sell a house? I mean, I do that even with people that are calling to sell me insurance, or to calling me to go to a different broker, get into that practice.
Excellent. And this is where it starts to cycle back to the concept of controlling the calendar and the time, and the pieces with that, and understanding that link between the target that you're going after in general, whatever that target is, or the handful of targets that you're going after, and the time investment necessary for that to then turn into the business that you desire to have. And really clearing off and being able to say no with the things that don't make as much sense in the calendar to free up the additional time. It's a very simple way to put it. It's not an easy thing to put in practice, as I'm sure you're well aware, as you've each gone through and done pieces in your calendars. But that's where we can really start to tie that back on being able to manage and control the calendar.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, time is always the same.
Absolutely. Awesome. I know we're coming pretty close to time here, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time. And any final, kind of parting thoughts on this concept of really targeting, the business that you desire to have, and ensuring that you're able to say no, controlling the calendar in such that way. Final thoughts or piece of advice, just from your experience, the ups and downs that you've each maybe gone through in navigating through this. What last kind of final thoughts do you have on this topic?
I think the only thing that I would say is be aware of what you're saying. What you tell somebody is what they're going to accept. And so that means, when an agent makes the mistake that says, I'm open 24 hours, their phone rings at 2 o'clock and they say, what the hell are you doing calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning? Well, they set themselves up. And so, I mean, that's a really simplistic example, but it's a real example. So my phone shuts off at 9:30 at night. Even goes grayscales, because otherwise I'm watching emails and all that stuff. And so I have something in place to tell me to knock it off.
Yeah. So important. That is a phenomenal final point. I appreciate you mentioning that. Thank you, Tom. Corwin, any parting thoughts on your side here?
I said most of what I had to say, but it's being disciplined from my perspective, and not kind of losing sight of the ball that I've set as what I want, and compromising or accepting cases that aren't what I'm looking for, that take just as long as the cases that I am looking for, and just being more disciplined about how I put cases on my workload, and continue moving forward that way.
Excellent. very good observations. Very good. Awesome. Well, I'll conclude kind of our conversation here. I appreciate you both for jumping on the call. Corwin, I don't think I had it because you weren't on last week. I'm going to quickly introduce you to Catherine, who's on the screen here as well. She just joined our team as our business development manager as of last week. So she's been jumping in and learning a little bit more about what we do these last couple of weeks. And Corwin, great person just to know overall, as I'm sure you can tell from this call. Just like Tom, getting to know Tom on this call, fantastic, people to know. So just want to make sure the two of you got introduced since we did introductions quickly at the beginning. But outside of that, thank you both for making the call. Thank you all four of you for making the call and just being in on the conversation. Invite others to join. Really and truly, these conversations go deeper and deeper the more folks that we have on the call and the more insights that we can get. Tom, you're welcome to extend the offer to your six-pack group if they want a little bit more out of the week and want to jump on for a little bit and just kind of jump into a little bit more conversation that maybe ties in what those conversations are, maybe outside of what just within real estate. More than welcome to have them join, but really anybody that you can think of, business leaders, business owners in the area, invite them to join. Let's get these conversations deeper and continue to provide some value on Friday mornings. Excellent.
Sounds good.
Well, enjoy the rest of your days. Have a phenomenal weekend, and hopefully we'll see many of you next week.